In this video, you will learn about citizenship in the Polis and how they learn to work together and be a community.
The History Channel.
You're all probably wondering what a polis is. A polis is a Greek city-state that was created before the Byzantine Empire. By Greek city-state, I'm referring to an independent community of citizens inhabiting a city in the countryside around.
So here's the layout of a typical city-state. The center of the city was known as Atsi. This is where the center of the city lies and is known as the core of Polis. Surrounding the Atsi is the Kora, or the countryside that includes the agriculture aspect of the Polis. So the physical characteristics of a polis can be expressed by saying Atsi plus Kora equals polis.
Is considered the most prominent of social and political organizations in ancient Greece. Each polis had the freedom to create their own laws and control themselves. There was hundreds of different variations of polises, and these all made up ancient Greece.
Citizenship was restricted to men, and women were not considered citizens, therefore could not vote or voice their opinion in a political assembly. Laws were stricter when it came to women. However, they did have the same legal protection as men, such as when it came to capturing them and selling them into slavery. But it was thought that women needed men for male guardians to protect them physically and legally.
Men were out participating in politics and voting. The women were left at home to manage the household. Some of these tasks included raising children, supervising the food, controlling the money, directing slaves, weaving fabrics, and tending to the ill. However, the poorer women would work outside the home, hoeing and reaping in other fields, or selling small products in the market.
Some women were known as extraordinary women. They were physically attractive women who were skilled in music and poetry. They were often hired for parties and sold themselves for sex, but they were able to choose who they slept with. The prices were high enough that they could be self-sufficient and lead to wealthy lives.
The rights of a citizen in a Greek city-state were able to control themselves in a direct democratic sort of way. Full citizens were men who owned land, fought, voted, and held office. Women were considered citizens but never considered full citizens.
Slaves were considered property and did not have very many rights. They could be legally beaten or killed by their owners. If they were educated, they became tutors for their owners' children. Public slaves enjoyed their limited freedom by living on their own and performing specialized tasks.
In wealthy houses, slaves or men did the shopping. Female slaves are known for occupations such as woolworking, retail trade, and wet nursing, or they worked in craft shops around the agora. In unusual circumstances, slaves could become wealthy. Some worked in trade, manufacturing, and banking. Sometimes they would be described as living apart. This means they lived and worked independently and made periodic payments to their masters. Also, many slaves worked in silver mines or were private slaves working in family houses. City-states often formed because of geography or because it prevented the possibility of a monarchy. Geography played a major role in the formation of city-states because there were so many mountains and islands in and around Greece. All of the communities were spread out and smaller governments formed. Also, the farmland was not able to support a large population, so the city-states stayed relatively small. Also, if a ruler had come into power in one state, their power would not spread because they would not be strong enough to take over another place.
Due to the restriction of the expansion of city-states, Greek citizens were able to create a more localized form of government, which helped to prevent the creation of a monarchical society.
In Egypt, the kings were the government and were considered to be living gods on earth. Whatever they said, the Egyptians would listen to them because they wouldn't disobey a god.
In comparison to earlier forms of government, citizens living in ancient Greece were allowed to think for themselves and were able to control how they were governed. In this society, every citizen was equal when it came to voting.
The democracy consisted of an equal vote for each man who was eligible. They voted by adding a black or white rock to what they called a voting box. As you can see, here's a model of what it might have looked like. All of the voters would do this in an area, such as an arena or some sort of court. After voting, they would count the black and white rocks and see whether what was purposed would be made a law or not.
Modern-day democracy is imitated from ancient democracy. In modern day, people use ballots to vote for the person that they want to be led by. People then place their ballots in a voting box after listening to a series of presidential debates. The votes are then counted to determine the winner.
A lot of subtle cues to a person's real feelings, what they don't want other people to see. It can be discerned from their facial expressions, their gestures, and their body language.
Sure. What somebody reveals with their posture, and especially their hands, can shine a light on their inner feelings about a topic or about a person.
The significance of democracy in ancient Greece is the equality between all men. This was important because it helped avoid mob rule. This was the kind of government where a mob or a group would control a political situation by those outside of the conventional or lawful realm, typically involving violence and intimidation.